Hello and welcome back to the Gold Advantage. I'm your host Nikita. With me is BMB. He is back for this episode, and we are covering America's greatest and finest LCS players playing.
I thought you were going to say America's greatest and finest sport.
Yeah, there we go. America's greatest and finest sport, played by America's greatest and finest import. Shout out to our Discord. We have a cool little list that has been put together of the top 30 teams globally by Robert. A really interesting top 30. The kind of depressing thing is that I don't think there is a EU or Western team until just outside top 20, which is pretty rough to see.
Hard to argue with.
Cloud9 above G2 by a small amount, but according to the data, Cloud9 is the best Western team.
Outside of their small, little hiccup with NRG, I think that bore out this weekend. I think that is, tough to say given the levels of competition that they're playing against, and this is where it's always really hard. But the fact that Robert's able to analyze all this and effectively normalize it across all the different leagues, and it's still putting the LCK, the LPL, all that much higher than the West, gives me some confidence in those rankings. I've still yet to see Cloud9 or any NA team perform when it comes to a international tournament, but I don't know. Gives me a smidge of the hopium for the upcoming international.
I think it was a real shame that we got robbed of that. Performance to me is different things. It's not winning. It's just like exceeding expectations. And I would have been very interested to see a Cloud9 up against the G2.
I mean, that is the most European take, and I love you for it.
I know, and I knew you would say something by the most American take, which is if we're not winning, we're losing, which, I think the Cowboys valuation and revenue stream would say otherwise.
So. I think that has nothing to do with their performance.
Exactly, but it is an interesting concept, and I do think there's something to be said that G2 has been, I think, a bit sloppy and slack with some of their gameplay.
100%.
I don't think they're bad, but they definitely went through a mid-season lull. I'm impressed, and we'll talk about this on the LEC episode that will be coming out tomorrow. But I will say that Cloud9 has just consistently looked head and shoulders better than everyone else. And I think last week I said it, just hand them the trophy, because as great as Golden Guardians looked last, but they smashed them. And now when I look at the other teams who, without a doubt, I am going to acknowledge look better, e.g. surpassing expectations.
Especially on that budget squad.
But I don't believe that any of them will beat Cloud9.
Look, I think we've got a good week. Golden Guardians have been playing, and I think you mentioned it, but Golden Guardians are playing really good.
Yeah.
And this is a team that made MSI. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people were surprised to see them make MSI. Sure. And for them to kind of come back in the summer split, and so far, prove that it wasn't just a fluke, it wasn't just a hot into spring run. Really encouraging to see. I do love EG right now. They are playing really well. They're beating the best, beating Golden Guardians, beating Team Liquid. Those are big time wins.
But massively. That's what I was gonna say. They've had a tough schedule.
Totally. That's my point.
They're also beating the competitors that they need to beat to be able to hold on to that top 2, top 3 spot.
And it all culminates on Friday, face up against Cloud9. And I know that they'll play everybody again, but that's going to be a really big moment, I think, for both teams. Yep. I think Cloud9 still have EG, and they still have Team Liquid. Cloud9's got an actual test this week. I would say this is a really important weekend for us to know where Cloud9 is. And if they go 3-0 this weekend, then it is hand them the trophy. If they falter a bit, and depending on who they falter to, there
is very little that they can do to convince me they are not getting the trophy. I find it hard to envisage anyone beating them in the finals at this stage.
Yeah, but Nikki, we have to drum up some excitement for this mid-season.
It's a fight for second place, and that's what I'm excited about. I'm excited who's coming second. And I look, you touched on Golden Guardians. They are looking good. I'm really impressed by this misfit team of EG. Like we said, good. They've had a tough schedule, and it's been impressive seeing how they've kind of succeeded through that, which has been excellent.
Before you go on from our beloved Golden Guardians, they were 0-2 to start the summer split, losing to EG and Cloud9, right?
Yep.
Since then, they've been on a 4-game tear. Of course, this weekend they have 100 Thieves, NRG, and Team Liquid. Again, this Team Liquid team has a hell of a weekend. They've got Cloud9, Golden Guardians, and Flyquest. LOL. My point that I was trying to make around Cloud9, around EG, around Golden Guardians, around Team Liquid, like basically the 4 top teams this week, like kind of all in some fashion play each other. And so this is like the first week where I'm like genuinely excited to see the LCS perform and see where things kind of fall out. And that is something that I haven't been excited for the past 2 weeks on.
For sure. And I am very excited to see how Golden Guardians, Team Liquid, and EG match up, because it becomes very interesting. I think the storyline is very skewed towards who's in first place or the fight for first. But I've always thought it's very interesting to see where do teams sit in the bracket, and how are they beating? Are they beating their competitors or not?
Correct.
If you split it into 3 groups of 3, let's say, and then one dud at the bottom, you kind of wonder, like, okay, are they sitting at the bottom of their group of 3, or are they sitting at the top of their group of 3? And if you're sitting at the top, are they actually a threat to the next group above them? And you need to cement your status by you can be top 3 by beating the bottom 4 teams. That doesn't count for much. If you're starting to beat the people in your group, then it starts to be a lot more legitimate.
100%. I really like that point, and especially since the LCS lets everyone into the summer playoffs. But there does become table stakes when you're fighting for the first and second place, right? You get a bye. That does add value. And being in like kind of the loser's bracket, or being 2 chances to win or lose. I like how you're breaking it up. I almost think it's like, because we've said this, from the past when it was 6 teams, it's almost like a top 3, a second 3, and then like a bottom 4, and kind of like where do you sit in that?
Yep. It also makes those matches, I think, a lot more interesting and exciting. It's hard to get excited sometimes around the bottom of the table, but when it's a bottom of the table fight for playoffs, I buy into that a lot more. I get a lot more interested in that. The team I want to really shout out here.
Flyquest?
No. Dignitas.
Yeah, I agree. Sneaky.
They are like my dark horse for a good team. When they got put together, I was pretty excited about them. I hated actually Armut killed all my excitement for it, so it's hard for me to actually say it. But he's out now. They brought in Ritz, who is looking really solid. I gotta say, he's looking really good. The energy on the team seems very positive. Jensen has always been very reliable, very good. It almost seems like Jensen's always fighting 1v2, 1v3, but he does it well. And Riches seems to be that piece that's kind of netting them a couple of wins. Now they're 3-3. I'm not saying they're gonna win the whole thing, but they're the team I'm really paying attention to. Are they going to be Golden Guardians of last split and make it a finals and no one's expected? I don't think so. But I do think that they might be the team that causes an upset in the bracket along the way.
And I think this is such like a unique insight into what one player can do. League of Legends is truly a team sport. Like it is every player has such a vital function within the game. It's amazing how much one player can really unlock a squad, right? And vice versa, and if you're looking at Flyquest or even across the pond, like Vitality and otherwise, it's like teams that one player clearly not carrying their weight, and at this level one player not carrying their weight, and it can be the slightest amount, but just like if the timings are off and the teamwork isn't there and the chemistry isn't there and you aren't moving around the map in a cohesive fashion, completely detrimental. What's interesting is obviously beating EG and Team Liquid. Really interesting. What's not as interesting is then losing to Immortals. Now again, you're going to lose the Golden Guardians, you're going to lose the Cloud9, like, kind of can be okay with that. So only one bad loss. To me, this is a really interesting weekend for them. For the same reason we just mentioned with everybody else. It's like, where do you fit within your band? You're in that second group of 3. You've beaten Team Liquid. You've beaten EG, which is good things. But now let's see, can you beat the NRGs, the 100 Thieves?
Then you're the top of your group of 3, and really you're starting to knock on that door of the top 4.
If they finish up 6-3, they might be top 3. And that's not really interesting.
Big time. Flyquest, you mentioned it. What an absolute disaster. It's just, they're 0-6. You have 18 games in a split. They have some margin of error, but despite, it doesn't matter where they finish at the moment. This is on paper a minimum of a top 4 top 3 team based on the roster alone. Like that, and that should be the lowest that they should be placed. The fact that they are so uncoordinated, Vikler I've already shouted out as being a disaster.
Yep.
It's the whole thing, and I'm curious at what point do they make a change, because apparently in scrims things are working and they're working well, but it doesn't matter if it doesn't get to stage. It's a real question. Like if we're halfway through the split,
If you go 9-9, you're definitely making playoffs.
but you have to win 9. It's an obvious statement, but the margin for error is becoming smaller and smaller.
You're building yourself quite a hole you have to dig yourself out of.
I think Vikler is so clearly a liability. You can't get on the page with that. But then also, but this goes beyond that. It's just Prince was running circles around people last.
Totally.
It makes no sense. Why is he suddenly imploding? You can point to Vulcan because he's the new person, but Vulcan was an incredible support last week. So there is just something about this team as a group where rather than being, greater than the sum of their parts, which EG, by the way, greater than the sum of their parts, Flyquest is, it's like a negative subtraction. It's a golf handicap.
Let me ask you something. And we had fun with this game, I think, last split, and I'm keen to kind of do it again. But like, if you were the GM of Flyquest, who would you trade for? Like, who would you, if you could like pair up with, someone like 100 Thieves or like a TSM? Because I assume you're not gonna probably want too many people from NRG, but maybe if you could like actually make it. I mean, I'm assuming you'd probably want to sub out Vikla and just put him on somewhere else, so you can almost like take any mid laner across the league at the moment and try and make a trade. But like, who would you? Because like, in theory, Vikla still has value. Like, where would you really try and improve the team the most?
No, Vikla's out. Like 100%. Vikla is out.
Who would you put in?
I could grab anyone and be Jensen. He is a proven commodity of success.
But Dignitas isn't trading that right now. They're to your point earlier. They're saying
don't know.
We're feeling kind of good.
Yeah, they're feeling kind of good, but I think Dignitas likes money more.
Fair. They might.
This is the question. Does Dignitas really think that they are going to get a title out of this? I don't think Golden Guardians does, because I think they're like, hey, we're going to Worlds, we're going to do well, and so on. Whereas with Dig, I think they're like, hey, we're doing actually decent, but last split was a bit of a disaster. And if you're going to offer me a nice stack of cash, I'll take Vikla. I think the best move you could do.
Knowing TSM is kind of bounced between their mid laners, between Ruby and Insanity, could you see them doing some sort of trade there?
Yeah, I actually thought maybe you want Insanity.
Just trying to play armchair GM. As we mentioned, as we previewed, we are excited for this week. I don't understand. I know you and I are going to say the exact same fucking thing, because there's no other match that is even worth talking about. Dignitas at a 2.30 underdog against 100 Thieves is just insane.
Yeah, I think that's
this is a team, like, we just went through it all. Dignitas, I think, is immense in value because people just see 3-3 and they're like, oh, they're not good. But two of their losses were to really good teams, and they've beaten two really good teams. To me, this is like one of those games where the amount of value on Dignitas against a team that they should absolutely beat is immense, and I will be putting significant capital behind them on this game.
Yeah, I'm pretty big on that one as well. Okay, day 2.
Yep.
My question here is, do you just take Dig over TSM again? This is one that I'm actually a bit question mark. Because TSM have pulled out some semi-decent wins in that bracket, and I feel like it's essentially even. I've got 1.8, 1.9. It's a little bit too even for me to be fully on the Dig train.
Correct. I'm not touching that one, because to me, the Dignitas team is the reason you take Dignitas over 100 Thieves is because 100 Thieves is not good, and Dignitas, I'm not saying they're great, but they're at 2.3, you just have to take that odds.
Yes.
Like, that's just a great value. In that same reason, I'm not going to touch that game. It's too even. It does feel like a coin flip. I'm fine kind of letting both those teams battle it out. I'm not touching it. The game for me that week, unquestionably, is NRG over Flyquest.
Okay, that was going to be my follow-up,
2.19, almost 2.2 odds against a team that is 0-6. Now, again, I know they're desperate, but to me, they're going to show so much more fight probably against Liquid than they are against NRG. This is a game where Yeah, it's just going to bear itself out. I mean, obviously, it is tasty looking at Liquid at 2.8 against Cloud9, a Liquid team that isn't bad, and this is just a historical rivalry that, you know, usually when these two teams meet, something happens.
I feel like Cloud9 is going to go 3-0, and you can parlay that for a 2.77 for me. I think I would do that. I don't trust Team Liquid enough. I mean, look, if the draft is really... I'm watching this match for sure, because if the draft is good and TL get a good draft, I'm going to bet on them, because the odds are great. I just don't know if I will pre-bet it. But talking about Cloud9, I think that's the perfect segue to day 3. I have Cloud9 to 1.65 against EG. I'm absolutely jumping on that. I think that's great.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's absolutely crazy. I will be jumping on that. Funny enough, and this is where I think you're starting to see Golden Guardians with the real real respect. They are a 1.80 against Team Liquid at 2.03. Like, honestly,
I like that.
I kind of feel great about both sides on that.
I do.
If you're into your point about watching the draft and the kind of picking based on the draft, like, that's going to start, I think, that's already starting at a very good number. So I don't know, a part of me wants to try and arbitrage it.
So I was going to highlight that one. I like that a lot, because I do think that Golden Guardians is better. I think people are sleeping on the org a little bit. They came, like you said, they lost first 2 games. I think people were like, ooh, rough start, bad MSI. And they're forgetting that Golden Guardians got to finals. Yes, they got rolled by Cloud9, but they still got to finals. So to me, they should be more of a 1.65. I'm happy to throw a little on a win there. 1.8 I'm very happy with that. The other one is actually going back to Dig against NRG. I have them dead even, 1.85 either side. I kind of want to watch how the previous games go, particularly the TSM one and the 100 Thieves one. I think the 100 Thieves one will be particularly interesting, and if I see that they look good, even if they lose it, but they look good, I'm actually pretty happy to ride the train all week on Dig, because they are playing against the bracket. So you parlay a Dig 3-0, you're getting 7.15 I have.
I'm getting 8.6.
And I can totally see them going 3-0 this week.
That to me is the best value on the book for the whole week, right?
Yeah.
I would do each of those individually, and then I'd also just have fun and put together one little parlay with a small amount.
Yeah.
Looking at, or Friday is by far the best day of matches. I mean, Cloud9 EG, awesome. Liquid Golden Guardians, awesome.
Yeah.
Dignitas NRG, awesome.
Yeah.
TSM 100 Thieves, you can get TSM at 2.14. Like, why is 100 Thieves still getting this much respect? I don't know. Such good value. It's anarchy. And then Immortals Flyquest. I mean, I don't know what Flyquest is going to do earlier in the weekend, but like Immortals at a 2.32. To your point, I kind of think Flyquest is going to win like one game, maybe 2 earlier in the week. And then this number is going to creep up even higher, and then Immortals is going to come and fucking smash them. Sure. It's going to be hilarious.
Yeah, for sure. I can see that. All right, that wraps it up. I don't have anything else to add. You got anything?
Just the first week that I'm excited to watch the LCS. And while it does throw my whole week out, I am falling in love with these Wednesday, Thursday, Fridays. Yeah. It's kind of great. It kind of separates them. The LEC then gets you Friday or Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Yeah. Like, basically, you have a league all the time, which is kind of great.
I'm not against it. It's like, I know a lot of people are like, oh, watching it live, but I don't need to watch every match, and I kind of like just having it up on the second monitor.
Correct.
You know, some matches I pay attention to, some I don't.
Could not agree more.
And if you are enjoying it, please like, or even better, subscribe. Come join our Discord if you want to tell us we're right, we're wrong, or talk to other people. And otherwise, we will see you next week. LEC episodes coming out later this week. Bye, everyone.
Toodaloo.